أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد بن عبد الله وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الأرجاس وطهرهم من الأدناس وجعل مودتهم أجرا على الناس ولا سيما على بقية الله في الأرضين الإمام المنتظر صاحب الزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف ابن هداة المهديين وعلى صحبهم الأخيار المنتجبين وعلى جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين والشهداء والمجاهدين في سبيل الله منذ آدم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، روي عن أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام أنه قال: احصد الشر من صدر غيرك بقلعه من صدرك. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. It has been reported that our first holy Imam, Imam Ali Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, has been reported to have said that cut down or sever the evil in the hearts of others other than yourself by uprooting it from your own heart. So on that note, first of all, I'd like to begin this evening by congratulating you all on the occasion for which we have gathered, the holy birth of our 11th holy Imam, Hassan ibn Ali al-Askari alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And goes without say that beyond congratulating us as believers, our congratulations goes to our living Imam, whose father was born on this holy night. His father, the 11th holy Imam, who was the inheritor of that prophetic mission, in the progeny of our sacred lady Fatima salamullahi alayha and her husband Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, from their progeny, that one who inherited this prophetic mission to spread the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to spread that teaching, to spread the light of wisdom, to spread the light of compassion and mercy of Islam. This is what we have as Islam. That light of virtue, of wisdom, of compassion, of mercy is a light that by no means is the exclusive right of any Muslim or the Muslims as a whole, nor do they have a monopoly, nor do we have a monopoly on this sacred light which the Holy Prophet ﷺ came with and came to teach and propagate. In fact, it was his mission to disseminate this light and convey this light of virtue and these virtues. For he says, of course, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, I have come only to perfect that nobility of character. He came to give that light of virtue to those who did not have it. So to those who were not Muslims. So indeed propagating and disseminating what we formally call today in these days as tabligh, or which we have in the Sunni world as da'wah, is actually a prophetic mission itself. So whoever carries that out is what the Holy Prophet ﷺ came for. And for myself, certainly, I can't speak for everyone in this room, but certainly for myself, and I know it's not restricted to myself, my forefathers were Hindus. And then due to the selflessness and due to the exertion of energies and efforts by some people, they were taught and they were given a certain light and understanding and wisdom and were attracted by virtue and became Muslims and became Muslim Ismailis then. And then later on became Isna Ashari Muslims. So had it not been for someone doing this, we wouldn't be here today in this, and the center wouldn't be here, and we certainly wouldn't be in it. So in a few minutes later, we'll talk about the importance of this propagation. But talking about the life of this individual, our 11th holy Imam, alayhi salam. Obviously, when talking about any historical event or personality, talking about history is useless and is futile. There is no point to talking about historical things unless we are going to take something from that to implement now. Yes, there lived a man, he did this and that. So what? So what? Unless I can take something from that. The story of Yusuf, what a beautiful story it is in the Quran, alayhi salam. Okay, so it happened. Allah says in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي يُوسُفَ وَإِخْوَتِهِ آيَاتٍ فَهُوَ لِلسَّائِلِينَ. In the story of Yusuf, in Yusuf and his brothers, there are certainly signs for those who ask the right questions. So there are signs to take from it. So there's something I can take. Otherwise, it's just a story. Who cares? I read bedtime stories to my son when he goes to sleep. But even they have some virtues in there. Otherwise, there's no point to these stories. Ibrahim, Yusuf, all of these came and went. Karbala came and went. If I'm not going to take something from there to implement now, to talk about these things is Yusuf, Ibrahim even. قَدْ كَانَتْ لَكُمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. As Allah says in the Quran, there is certainly for you a goodly exemplar, a wonderful example, في إبراهيم والذين معه. Not only in Ibrahim, also those who were with him. So I have to take something from these historical personalities. They are just not confined in history, but there's something I have to take from them, from all aspects of history. World War I, World War II, if there's not something I can learn and implement in my life to get closer to Allah, then it might as well not have been conveyed to me at all. So talking about this holy Imam, 11th Imam alayhi salam, his time was a time whereby the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and their followers endured extreme hardship, actually. It was not an easy time compared to the Imams that went before him, the 10 who went before him. Certainly the 11th Imam's time was an extremely difficult and tough time for those who were following him. Tough time for himself in the number of restrictions that were placed on him by the Abbasid government at the time. Tough time for those who were adherents and followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, that they were restricted in their contact to the Imam. Remember, the Imam alayhi salam was one who was imprisoned time and again, from prison to prison, some from house arrest to house arrest. And we say now we are in a difficult time that our Imam, Ajallahu Ta'ala Farajah, is removed from us by ghaiba, and we don't have access to him. Well, formerly there was no ghaiba at the time of the 11th Imam between him and his followers. But in the sense that he was constantly imprisoned, there was that separation between Imam and followers. So there was not that much difference between then and what we have now, except of course there were certain intermediaries, some nawab, specific nawab of the Imam alayhi salam, whereby he would contact and communicate with his Shia at that time, which we don't have now. Obviously we have no naib of the Imam, of our Imam now. But apart from that, the situation was somewhat similar. Not only that, but maybe that time it was more difficult in that the Shia at this time now, our life, we can gather here and we can talk and we can commemorate and we can celebrate. Whereas that time you were not allowed to even do that kind of thing, which was seen to be something in opposition to the Abbasid government. So now we think we are living in now is the worst time. Now is Akhirul Zaman. This is the time, this is the worst. Actually, every generation thought they were in the worst time. Every generation, now we believe we're in the worst time. Now we have ISIS is here and enmity against the Shia and Muslims. Generally, these Paris attacks are happening, and now we get the spotlight is turned on us again, and Muslims are always being watched. And then you have the Daily Mail, and you have the right wing, and you have this, and you have against immigration. Muslims are always the targets of all of this. Now is the worst time to be living. And on top of Muslims being the target, as we mentioned, the sectarian issue is such that the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are under even more constraints. So now we're in the worst time. Now we think we're in the worst time. We're saying Imam should come now, and now he has to come because even King Abdullah died now in Saudi Arabia. We think that's a sign now. We start digging up the history books to see when Abdullah was supposed to die so that our Imam would return. Abdullahs have died before, and Abdullahs will die again. Inshallah, hopefully this might well be a sign, but no one has the authority to say that this was the one in this speculative hadith anyway. But now we all think we're living in the worst time. It's not. It really isn't. At the time of the 8th Imam, alayhi salam, Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, alayhi salam, His companions thought this is the worst time. Look at the amount of oppression the Abbasid Caliphate is put. He is the Mahdi. He was only the 8th in line of Imams. He was only the 8th. His companions, he has to be the Mahdi. Times are so difficult. The 9th came, he is the Mahdi now. So everyone thought they were in the worst time. On a side note, just with regards to this, he was the 8th holy Imam and his companions were alluding to the notion that he would be the Mahdi. So that also shows in our history, as a side point, there's an immense amount of confusion. The way we've been given our history now, that Imam Ali, Hassan, Hussein, 4th, 5th, 6th, and now we have 12 and that's the history, and there was no arguments. No, it wasn't as such. We know Muhammed al-Hanafiya wasn't a partisan of the 4th holy Imam after Karbala. We had the Zaydis shooting off in one. If the Prophet has said this is 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 12, these are their names. If it was so clear cut, it wasn't. Which is why we had all these offshoots. The Zaydis went in one direction. After the 6th holy Imam, we had the Waqifis stopping at one point. We had the Ismailis shooting off in another direction following Ismail. There was a lot of confusion at that time throughout the chain of the Imams alayhimus salam. Zurara, was he not the closest companion of the 6th holy Imam? That we hear his name so, Zurara. That any hadith that comes from Zurara suddenly has a tick box next because he was the closest companion, he cannot be done. Zurara, we have authentic narrations about him being confused as to who the next Imam is after the 6th holy Imam. The closest companion was unsure. So you can imagine the amount of confusion that was there. It wasn't as clear cut as we are made to perceive now. And after the demise of our 11th holy Imam, well, we know Imam was going into Ghaiba. He appeared for the funeral prayers at 5 years old, and he went into Ghaiba. A couple of people had seen him before that. We have some hadith that ex-delegation from Qum saw him, and this person saw him. But immediately that time after the 11th holy Imam was, in our Shia history, is known as Asrul Hayra. It is known as the episode of the era of confusion. So things were not as easy as they seem. However, perhaps now, because of our insecure complex, that we think this is the worst time, we're under surveillance, we're being watched all the time. Muslims are constantly under attack, and now we know in the media this idea of watching and putting surveillance is even more at the forefront, this discussion. How much should be watched? So we're being watched all the time. So this idea of propagation, you know what happens when people feel like this, that they're being watched or that they're being scrutinized or that they're being constantly criticized? The defensive walls go up. That it doesn't matter, we're going to celebrate and commemorate within this center, that mosque, and our activities are between ourselves, at the workplace, at the university. We are also isolated. In a community level, we are isolated. We isolate ourselves. On an individual level, we often isolate ourselves. We can't talk about theological matters. I mean, these are religious things. So someone will think I'm a radical or a fanatic. So I isolate myself that way as well. Actually, this is not the right time to propagate Islam. Islamic propagation, it's not the ideal circumstances to propagate Islam. Perhaps we've misunderstood what Islam is, first of all, then. And secondly, we've misunderstood what propagation can be also. Because if Islam is just that light of excellent morals and lofty godly virtues, if that is what Islam is truly, then is there ever a point or an excuse whereby one should not disseminate or propagate Islam? Keeping in mind the importance of this task that we have in the hadith, for example, that prophetic mission of propagating that light of virtue, of morals, of principles, of justice, of freedom. If this is what Islam is there ever an excuse that now is not the right time to propagate these kind of things? The ahadith with regards to such propagation, we have our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. He is telling Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, by Allah, لَإِن يَهْدِيَ اللَّهُ عَلَى يَدَيْكَ رَجُلًا. Prophet is telling Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, by Allah, were Allah to guide by your hands, or at your hands, rajulan, one man. Obviously the hadith is in context, means one man or one woman, one individual. Were Allah to guide by your hands, لَإِن يَهْدِيَ اللَّهُ عَلَى يَدَيْكَ رَجُلًا. Also in the subtleties of such words, if we look into them, we find the Holy Prophet is telling Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam that man is not the ultimate guide. Man cannot guide. لَإِن يَهْدِيَ اللَّهُ. Were Allah, if Allah guides. Allah is the ultimate guide. So this is a lesson to us also. عَلَى يَدَيْكَ. At your hands. Meaning Allah is the guide. Allah is Al-Hadi, the ultimate guide. Ala yadayka, the human being, ma'asum in this case, is the agent for that guidance, not the ultimate guide. So it goes for us as well. When we think we can guide people or we cannot guide, we are not the guides for people. Allah is the guide. But Allah gives a privilege to some people to be agents and intermediaries of that divine light and that virtue. The Prophet tells Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, لَإِن يَهْدِيَ اللَّهُ عَلَى يَدَيْكَ رَجُلًا. If Allah guides at your hands or by your hands one individual, خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِمَّا طَلَعَتْ عَلَيْهِ الشَّمْسُ وَغَرُبَتْ. It is better for you than everything that the sun has risen on and set upon. Means everything from east to west. If you had all of that, the guidance of one individual by your hands is better for you. Better for you than everything from east to west. The guidance of one individual at your hands. Allah guiding one individual by your hands. This is better for you than everything from east to west. Imam Hassan ibn Ali al-Askari alayhi salam was that agent who was charged with the responsibility and honored obviously with that task, that prophetic mission directly. We all have that responsibility. But directly from that line to propagate within these circumstances of surveillance and restriction and imprisonment. How did he do this? Did he do this or did he give up his task of being that divine agent of guidance? If we cease to do this, obviously we're at a loss. Allah's guidance will not finish. Allah is the ultimate guide and He will find guides, He will find agents for that guidance. If we don't do it, we will be at a loss. We will not have that privilege. But two, actually we will be doing an oppression. Because wisdom and virtue itself has a right upon us to be disseminated to those who deserve it. And it has a right upon us to withhold it from those who do not deserve it. If we refuse, remember we think Islam is what? Virtue, divine principles, lofty characteristics, morals. If Islam is this, and I refuse to give it to those who are outside of these four walls, what do I think of these people that their hearts do not deserve it? My ancestors being Hindus and then Ismailis and then they deserved it. But these people don't deserve it. Why? Why do I think of these people in this way? Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who casts light in the hearts of those who are willing to receive that light. Maybe they are Christians, atheists, Jews, agnostics, Buddhists, non-Muslims of every kind out there. Allah is watching their hearts. They were Hindus who got that light and we are here today as a result. Hindus, polytheists. What is to say that there are not good hearts out there that are not receptive to just principles, virtues? And virtue and wisdom itself has a right upon us for this to be conveyed. We have a hadith from our holy sixth Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam that he says about Isa alayhi salam. Isa again being another historical figure. Nothing to do with us. Unless we are going to take some principles and some lessons from his life to be implemented. So Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam says about Isa ibn Maryam, about Isa the son of Maryam alayhi salam, he says, قام Isa ibn Maryam alayhim as-salam. Isa the son of Mary, peace be upon them both, stood خطيبا في بني إسرائيل. He stood to address the children of Israel, the Bani Israel. فقال, and he said to them, remember Israel was a name of Yaqub alayhi salam. So Bani Israel means that progeny of Yaqub who became the Jewish people at that time or that tribe. He stood in front of them, addressing them. He said, Ya Bani Israel, O children of Yaqub of Israel, La tuhaddithu juhala bil hikmah. Do not address or do not speak with the ignorant. Remember, jahil in classical Arabic terminology does not mean one who does not know or is ignorant or oblivious of a fact. It means someone who is stern-headed and is not ready to accept because of that obstinate nature. So do not address the juhal, these kind of people, with wisdom. فَتَظْلِمُوهَا, that you would oppress the wisdom. You would oppress wisdom by casting it in front of those who don't deserve it, who are jahil. وَلَا تَمْنَعُوهَا أَهْلَهَا, and do not withhold it, do not prevent it from those who deserve it, those who are appropriate to receive it. أَهْلَهَا, the people of it. فَتَظْلِمُوهُمْ, that you would be oppressing them. Now, whilst I think my or our duty of propagation of virtues is somehow curtailed or temporarily suspended in this circumstance that I live in, mean that I consider Bob, Frank, Dev and everyone else outside who is non-Muslim as jahil, because they cannot accept virtues and wisdom. If this is what Islam is, then yes, suspend. If everyone around me is jahil. Back to the life of Imam alayhi salam, to draw the parallels. Imam alayhi salam, our 11th holy Imam, according to the historians, lived between 28 and 30 years old. So already my age that I am at now, I'm already older than Imam's age when he passed away. And the vast majority of us probably are past that age here in this room now. That's his short life. In that 28 to 30 years of life, he was imprisoned, and we already said he was restricted. He was placed in a garrison, in a military garrison. That's where he was housed. That's why his name is his title is Al-Askari. Yes, means the one who is in that garrison. We have numerous hadith from his companions that they say, Zurtu Aba Muhammadin, for example, talking about the 11th Holy Imam. I went to visit the Imam, Abu Muhammad, meaning Al-Askari alayhi salam. Zurtu Aba Muhammadin inda al-Askar, or fil Askar. That means I went to visit him in that garrison. Due to this, Imam being known as the one who was placed there, or who was housed there, really he was imprisoned there, but obviously the authorities would not make it sound as such. The one who was placed there, due to that, he was known as Al-Askari. He's 28, 30 years old. Most of us here are older than he was when he passed away. So in that short life, his popularity and that of his father already posed such a threat to the Abbasid Caliph that he had to be under house arrest. In that short life, how much popularity can a person, or how much gravitation can a person have towards themselves in that short life? A person has to be a politician and then work this way, work that way, then they maybe grow their, get a million followers on Twitter and this, and then they get people towards them. 30 years old, they had to imprison him because of his popularity. His popularity based on virtue. Even the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, as we said at that time, were pretty much hidden from society. They couldn't gather like this and have discourses. That's the pressure they were under. Imam alayhi salam, his ability to communicate, you can imagine, under those circumstances was severely restricted. A word here or a word there, a letter smuggled here or a letter smuggled through there. Certainly no time for lectures or like we had it at the time of sermons, at the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. No, none of that. A word here and a word there, an indication here, an indication there. Often when he was commuting from one place to another, that's when he would get an opportunity to pass some advice or people to ask him something. That was the time. If this Imam, despite being under such circumstances, was able not to suspend his duty of propagating and being that agent of guidance, and not suspend that duty of his, how is it? Under such circumstances, he still propagated wisdom, mercy, compassion, and the virtuous light of Allah subhanahu. Still. If he did that under such circumstances, one, how did he do that? So we can learn. We are under a time where we are under extreme surveillance. I know the spotlight is on Muslims and everything is being watched and we have to watch what we say and watch what we don't say. What is the light of Islam then? How did Imam alayhi salam under those circumstances propagate Islam? Two, why can we not do that? One, well, I think, in my humble opinion, and you can feel free to challenge these, I'm sure you may, we have two issues. One is a minor issue which we can overcome. The second is a slightly different issue. One, perhaps we do not appreciate the gravity of disseminating and propagating this message of Islam. But that we can overcome. It just takes a few hadith. But two, we have not realized what Islam truly is and what propagation is. And that's why perhaps we feel propagation of Islam is so difficult. It's not. It doesn't have to be rather. If our 11th holy Imam was able not to stop that task under his circumstances, propagation of Islam does not mean standing or at the supermarket or the shopping center with a table like this with da'wah, brother, da'wah. Everyone who goes past it block the da'wah. Nobody wants this. That doesn't propagate anything. If it brings some people into a fold, it brings them into somewhere which is not Islam, certainly. To intimidate people in this way, da'wah. This is not Islam. If we said Islam is lofty principles, how did this man spread this message then? Disseminate despite so much security. And what was this message? What was this message of Islam, guidance, that he was incessantly and constantly conveying? Let's analyze a couple of things from his life that we have, anecdotes or incidents. Imam, we mentioned, was constantly under house arrest or under detention. If not in a prison, in a garrison, if not in a garrison, at people's houses. People's huge houses, he used to be arrested or confined to one quarter of the house. In one of the hadith, one narration we have about him, Hubisa Abu Muhammadin alayhi salam, means that this 11th holy Imam was detained inda Ali ibn Awtamish, and with a man, or under the surveillance, if you like, of a man called Ali ibn Awtamish. Awtamish doesn't sound like an Arab name, does it? Awtamish. After the Abbasid rule, remember, many Turks were invited into the Islamic lands. Awtamish is a Turkish name. So this Ali ibn Awtamish, who gained a big position with the Abbasid Caliph at the time, Imam alayhi salam was under house arrest with him. What kind of man was this? So Imam is already under surveillance, scrutiny, restriction, imprisonment, and in the house of Ali ibn Awtamish, وَكَانَ شَدِيدَ الْعَدَاوَةِ لِآلِ مُحَمَّدٍ. This was a person who was incredibly severe in his enmity towards the family of our Holy Prophet. وَغَلِيظًا عَلَىٰ آلِ أَبِي طَالِبٍ. He was severe and harsh towards the family of Abu Talib. Surveillance, restriction, confinement, imprisonment. Under such a person, And the Abbasid Caliph and his ministers, when they handed him over to this Ali ibn Awtamish, they told him, it is said, وَقِيلَ لَهُ إِفْعَلْ بِهِ وَافْعَلْ. Means, do unto him and you keep doing to him. Do what you want to him. Now, Shadidul Adawa to the family of the Holy Prophet. So under such circumstances, just imagine now for ourselves, followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, Muslims, people who crop up in the media, within the UK, outside of the UK, who have, you think might have extreme enmity towards followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Picture that person. Maybe you have a picture of a personality in your mind. International or within the UK, this person, extreme enmity to the war, towards the Shia, for example. How do you feel about this person? That person who, if he had you in his custody, he would not, there would be no end to your torture. Picture that. How do you feel about this person? Suddenly something comes here, the chest tightens towards this person. Anger or animosity even. These animals, not human. Already I have dehumanized him. And I have this poisonous enmity towards that picture of that person. Well, Ali ibn Awtamish was such a person. Shadid al-Adawa to the Holy Prophet's family. And Ghalidan, he was very harsh. And he was told, torture him, do what you want to him, don't stop doing to. So he was such a person. But Imam alayhi salam didn't have that attitude towards him that I have towards X person. And when I already said, we think this person doesn't deserve, or the people around me actually don't deserve a certain light or virtue. Imam never had that attitude towards him or towards such people. This is the point. As a result, what happened? Who was he? Shadidul Adawa and Ghalid. He was severe and he was told to torture him. The narration. So imagine what kind of personality, what kind of attitude Imam must have presented to him compared to what kind of perception I have of this person now in enmity and venom and malevolence. Imam, what attitude did we have? That the narration continues, فَمَا أَقَامَ إِلَّا يَوْمًا, that Imam was not residing with him. This narration says, but for one day. It's a figure of speech, means perhaps a couple of weeks or a short period of time. حَتَّى وَضَعَ خَدَّيْهِ لَهُ, means that Ali ibn Awtamish put his head down, his cheeks on the floor, out of the Imam. وَكَانَ لَا يَرْفَعُ بَصِيرَهُ إِلَيْهِ إِجْلَالًا لَهُ وَإِعْظَامًا. This enemy of the Ahlul Bayt used to not raise his eyes to the face of Imam out of reverence of him. He was that personality you were picturing. He was the most severe. What happened? We say this sect is the most severe to the Ahlul Bayt and their followers, and if we were there, they would behead us and they would do that kind of person he was. That kind of person. What happened, or what did Imam show him, or what characteristic did, what lack of poisonous venom did Imam have towards him? That this person would not raise his eyes. What kind of ibadah, what kind of moral virtue was this man showing? That he melted the heart of this person, that he would not raise his eyes out of reverence, such that the Abbasid Caliph had to remove Imam from there because this person had fallen in love with the Imam. He cannot be under this person's surveillance anymore. He's become a follower of him. And he was that person, extreme enmity. وَخَرَجَ مِنْ عِنْدِهِ, he came, when the Imam was taken away from him, وَهُوَ أَحْسَنُ النَّاسِ بَصِيرَةً وَأَحْسَنُهُمْ قَوْلًا فِيهِ. He became the person who would repute the Imam most highly and speak the best words about it. This was the one who was willing to torture him. And what was this Imam? Imam was moved to another place and another. Why did they have to keep moving Imam? Because people were falling in love with him. What kind of personality was? How did he disseminate that virtuous light despite being under restrictions he was under? Repeated incidents like this. Another incident, a man put two of his harshest, strongest, hard-hearted slaves with this Imam to torture him. When he came to visit the Imam afterwards to see how much he's been tortured, he saw these two people became the khadims, of the two servants of the Imam. And the authorities came to him and said, how are you treating them? He said, do you not think I placed the harshest people with him? I don't know what he's done to them. What kind of Imam was this? What kind of individual was this? How was he able to do this? And had Imam acted in a different manner, would he have been, had he perceived these people the way I perceive non-Muslims around me? Not that I'm venomous towards them, no. Not that I have hatred towards them, no. Not that I have any animosity towards them. No, we don't have animosity towards non-Muslims, we don't. Hang on. We don't have animosity towards them, we don't. Hang on. We live in a time where Islam, Sunni Shia is not the issue. Islam is perceived in a certain way. Are Muslims partially responsible for such perceptions? Maybe. Maybe not. Muslims today, in this country, or in the West especially, but because our experiences are from here in the UK, are perceived, we have this notion of Islamophobia, don't we? Call Islamophobia. Means what? Muslims are, phobia by the way in this context doesn't mean a fear of Muslims. Muslims are perceived as, at best, otherly. Not part of us. We have the British society and then we have Muslims. Why are Muslims perceived in this way? And am I doing something to let my perception be this way, that I am other than you? Am I? Are we? No, these are my brothers in humanity. Yes? I want to invite them towards my deen. They are my equals, Muslims or non-Muslims. Yeah? But on a rainy day, I'll hesitate to shake hands with you. Because then I have to go wash it because my prayer is not accepted then unless I go and wash my hands. On a rainy day, my best friend, be it a Hindu or an atheist, I can't give him a lift because if he wets my car, my whole car's... He said, well, yes, but Shaykh, this is just jurisprudence. This is different from our... No. If we fool ourselves for a second into thinking that our day-to-day lives which run on jurisprudence doesn't affect my perceptions, I am fooling nobody but myself. And that effect on my mental perceptions is inevitable. Inevitable. Let's take an example. How can it affect my life? Picture for ourselves, and we don't want to have show of hands, just picture within our minds, if we close our eyes for a second, and this is a thought experiment. Close our eyes for a second, we see a young kid in central London, European kid, seems like East European, you know, disheveled, obviously hungry, and he's asking for food or money, he's begging for money. My heart is a bit moved. If I see an orphan in Iraq or in Syria, how much is my heart moved? Oh, it's broken. That means I don't view them equally. Yeah? This one is not equal to that one because this one is follower of Ahlul Bayt and this one isn't. Yes, so that otherly perception is my fault. Because I'm putting that there. This one is Muslim, this one is not Muslim. There's a gradation there. When I say that my equals in, I don't mean it. Because there's gradation there. Actually, academic studies and research has shown into the Shia population, academics are writing now, for example, that one criticism, well, I say criticism, one observation of the global Shia community is that their charity giving is highly centralized. Charity giving, not that they're not generous, they give, but the giving of charity is highly centralized. What does that mean? I mean, it's going towards one place or benefiting one kind of people. Because these people are more valuable than other people. This is the effect of my perceptions. That I think that my Christian brethren, brothers and sisters, or Jews, or Hindus, or atheists, are lower in status to myself because of some theological proclamations that I have. So what happened to that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam saying people of two types, you're either your brother in faith or your peer or your equal in humanity? What did that mean then? I went down the pan just when I want to raise charity for, so I say, oh, my Imam says this, It has no real effect. I still see them as lower than myself. Whereas I see a people lower than myself, and I want this Islamophobia to go. The worst people of enmity towards the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, our Imam al-Askari alayhi salam never had a venomous attitude towards them. And as a result of that, he melted their hearts. They became his. Why? It was just. Did he tell them, let's sit for a polemical discussion. Ali alayhi salam was the rightful follower after the Prophet because the Ghadir was this way and that way. Or no, God is one and not three because. Or was it he was in prison for God's sakes? How much virtue under that circumstance does a person have to show? And how much soft heart, that virtues is what attracts a person. That's what Islam is. Which is why we started this with this hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam saying, where he said, "Ihsad al-shar," cut down or mow down evil, animosity, min sadri ghayrik, from the hearts of other than yourself. How? بِقَلْعِهِ مِنْ صَدْرِكَ, by uprooting it from yourself. So take that step first. Now, before people misunderstand me, there is no suggestion to say that if we all change our perceptions today, there will be no animosity towards Islam. Islamophobia will melt away like this. No, of course it won't. Despite his great morals, Imam al-Askari alayhi salam had so much enmity towards him. Not despite, because of his morals. Because of his virtue was attracting so much popularity. People had enmity towards because they were threatened that they would lose power. That is why the enmity was there. So there's no suggestion that suddenly if we become good people of pure hearts, Islamophobia will disappear from. No, it won't. But at least allow people to hate us for the right reasons. Yeah? Instead of hating us because of my own perceptions of them, creating some sort of barrier between us, that my virtue stop at this defensive wall, that wisdom, if I have it at all, stops at this, and I cannot. What did the Prophet say to Imam alayhi salam? If Allah guides an individual at your hands, better for you than everything that the sun rose on and set upon. So da'wah in these circumstances is not what we, let's have a polemical debate with my Christian. We are both entering this interfaith gathering, hoping to convert the other one. He thinks he's right, I think, what's the point of this gathering then? He's trying to convert me and convince me, and I'm doing the same to him, and Hindus and all the same thing. Why? We know nothing's going to come of this. People are attracted by virtue, as we know the famous hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, at kunu du'atan bi ghayri alsinatikum, become inviters to the faith without even using your tongue. Was Imam Askari alayhi salam not exactly that? That the person that days, I don't want to mention names of personalities, but you can see the most person of enmity towards Shia and Ahlul Bayt, that person of that day would not raise his eyes to the Imam out of reverence of him, and would put his cheek down on the ground out of reverence in a short period. So, to quickly recap, 1, Imam alayhi salam, being from that impeccable household of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, was the agent of that guidance of Allah to spread, and the light of virtue to spread. Number 2, this light of virtue, nobody has exclusive right over it to say, these are the people of it, these people don't deserve it. No. This is the light of Allah, and Allah guides who He wishes. If I want to be part of that process, then I will be privileged. If not, then no. Number 3, Imam alayhi salam underwent extreme hardship in the sense of scrutiny, imprisonment, pressure from the... Despite that, we saw some anecdotes of how he changed the most harshest guards at that time towards him. Number 4, as we mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate guide. People may be privileged to act as intermediaries for that guidance or agents for that guidance. Number 5, sometimes, perhaps, that feeling of otherness or barrier we have from the wider non-Muslim community may be down to our own perceptions of them, first of all, which is reciprocated and which is felt really. And number 6, if we as Muslims or as followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam are going to be despised, and people of the haqq and of the truth are always have enmity towards them, but let it be for the right reasons, because we are people of truth, not people who have misunderstood the religion altogether. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammed wa ala ahli bayti at-tayyibin at-tahirin.